Action Comics number 1000, a landmark issue and the ultimate tribute to not only Superman, but DC Comics as a whole. This issue stands out not only for being the first ever American comic book to reach 4 digits in numbering, but also because it's celebrating the 80th anniversary of Action Comics, with issue number 1 releasing April 18th, 1938. This issue had been built up for months, and it did not fail to deliver at all. It provides a massive 80 pages of content, and has 10 distinct stories, each with its own writer and artist pair, providing a different take on the Man of Steel, while honoring his legacy in a number of unique ways. Seeing as how this issue is made up of several short stories in an anthology style, rather than one single story, I'll be going through each story, provide my thoughts and opinions on it, and then move on to the next story. Once I finish going through all of the different stories, I'll give some insight as to how I feel about the issue as a whole. Now, there will also be a giveaway for Action Comics number 1000 at the end of this review, so stay tuned for that. Now then, let's go ahead and see everything Action Comics number 1000 has to offer, not only as a 4-digit comic, but as the 80th anniversary of Action Comics, as a tribute to Superman, showcasing his values, morals, beliefs, and everything that Superman embodies, stands for, and inspires. The first story, From the City That Has Everything, opens with Superman in space, while John and Lois are wondering about where he is. John is worried that Superman won't arrive in time, but Lois assures him he will be there. Superman, however, is busy fighting against the Khund, who are moving against Earth. As he keeps fighting the Khund, engines start to malfunction, and Superman uses this opportunity to send their ship through the portal that they arrived in the first place. With the threat gone, Superman returns to Earth, though he really wishes more time had passed by so he could avoid the upcoming ceremony. John continues to be worried Superman won't make it in time, and he offers to take his place, but Clark arrives just in time. Lois wants Clark to show up as Superman, but he is worried that the Khund might still be out there. The mayor commences the ceremony, and the crowd starts to ask where Superman is, since they can't start without the guest of honor. Of course, the mayor mentioned Superman was invited, but there's no real way of making sure that he will attend. She then goes on to tell her own personal story of how Superman impacted her life, involving being saved from a flooded subway. While she is sharing that story, Clark keeps checking to make sure that the Khund are really gone. A firefighter proceeds to tell his testimonial about how he once ran into a burning building after a child, even though he had already been given the order that it was too unstable and he had to back out. Had it not been for Superman, who knows if he would have made it out there or not. Clark says he vaguely remembers that incident, and Lois reminds him what he does is much more important and impactful to those he affects rather than himself. Clark continues to be cautious about his surroundings, and Lois gets a call from Perry White. The next person to speak is Maggie Sawyer. She talks about how most of the time her team can handle themselves, but on those rare occasions where they aren't enough, they're grateful to have Superman around to lend a hand. The crowd continues to ask where Superman is, wanting to see him for the Superman Day celebration. The next speaker is Mr. Benning, and to the surprise of John, he's an ex-convict. When John asks why they would let a criminal speak at the ceremony, Clark tells him to simply listen to what he has to say. Benning says that every time Superman would arrest him, Superman would also listen to him and try to get him to change. He wanted to help. Benning never really changed until one day he got in way too deep and he almost died. Superman not only saved his life that day, but he also helped him get a job after he was released from prison, and he helped him to end the cycle of violence and poverty that plagued him. Clark shows John that they let him speak to remind everyone, people can become better, and you never have to lose hope on anyone. Lois continues to be on the phone with Perry. However, the very next guest to speak is Perry White himself. Clark figures out Lois was never talking with Perry to begin with, and quickly changes into Superman, while Perry starts a brief speech about Superman's strength. The crowd is joyed to finally see Superman as he flies off to find where the danger is. As Superman is flying, he's quickly stopped by Wonder Woman, who tells him everything is under control and he must return to the ceremony. While the Khund did arrive on Earth, they were taken care of before Superman could notice anything, and Martian Manhunter was also helping out to keep Superman's mind occupied and away from the danger. When Superman asks why they did this, Wonder Woman tells him it's because he's different from all the other heroes. He lives with people all the time. He never needs to wear a mask. He inspires people in ways no other hero can or does. He deserves to be with them now. Superman is surprised that the League went through all the trouble, and Lois revealed it wasn't just the League, it was everyone. The story ends with Perry White and the mayor thanking Superman for all he's done, not just for Metropolis, but for people everywhere. Lois remarks that Superman has a bond with Metropolis, and that while he gives so much to the people always give back to him. That's what makes him special, that's what makes him Superman. This first story was probably the longest out of all of them, but it makes for a really strong start to the issue. The main theme present in this story is how Superman impacts Metropolis, but also how Metropolis impacts Superman. Throughout the story, Superman is much more focused on the alien threat, rather than the ceremony and the celebration for him. It's clear he cares about keeping them safe more than he does about getting praise from them. Another thing I found to be a great touch was Superman's reaction towards the revelation. Not only the Justice League, but hundreds of heroes and anti-heroes were all working together just so he could have the day off. Superman is by nature a humble person and a humble hero. At the beginning, he didn't want to attend the ceremony, not because he dislikes people or because he dislikes Metropolis, but because he dislikes the praise. In his mind, he's not Superman. He's just another person doing a good deed. He's doing what anyone would do, help and do the right thing. Both Lois and Wonder Woman's statements about the nature of Superman spoke incredibly well to the heart of his character. Wonder Woman pointed out Superman is different from every other hero that exists. He holds a relationship with people that no other hero has or ever will have. Superman does more than just protect Metropolis. He inspires it to be better. Lois's words about Metropolis affecting Superman, just as much as Superman affects Metropolis, is another incredible and powerful unique aspect of his character. The people of Metropolis help Superman just as much as Superman helps them out. Throughout the Superman Day celebration, they show Superman he means so much more than he thought he did, and he matters more on so many levels. Metropolis, its people, Superman, they all have a unique relationship, and they all help each other to grow and become better. The story captures this message perfectly. It's also filled with so many great moments, such as Lois opening her shirt to reveal a Superman shirt underneath, in Superman fashion, as well as the amazing shot of all of the heroes and anti-heroes who work together to give Superman the best Superman Day possible. One of my favorite stories in the issue and an amazing start. The next story is The Never-Ending Battle. The entire story is a narration done by Superman to explain why he was late. It begins with Superman fighting the immortal Vandal Savage. As they're fighting, Vandal Savage says he has a way to get rid of Superman once and for all. He blasts him with chronal tachyons, which send him throughout time. His first stop is Metropolis in the 1930s. Here he has less powers, but he also has less control of his powers, making him much more dangerous overall. Superman at first likes being in the past. Things were much simpler back then. It was just a strong man fighting to help the weak, but he knows he has to get back home. His travels to get home take him to many old places, from distant planets and the depth of space, throughout time and throughout history as a hero. He even has to fight against himself in order to escape and return home. The one thing that keeps him going, driving him to continue going, is knowing that there are people home waiting for him. Nothing is going to stop him, whether it be losing his powers, facing his inner darkness, reliving the most difficult, the most painful moments of his life. At the end of it all, Superman will get home. His trip through time was difficult, it was painful, but the past made him stronger, and he returned to defeat Vandal Savage. The issue ends revealing the narration was towards Lois and John. Superman was late for his own birthday party. Now though, he was home, and it was time to celebrate. This story works basically just as a journey through the most influential moments in history for Superman. This issue as a whole is meant to be a celebration for Superman's 80 years, so it's great we get to see some of his greatest moments in time come to life. I personally didn't recognize every single page and what it was supposed to be a reference to, but I'm sure that many die-hard Superman fans have already uncovered each and every reference here, and there are so many to find. Some of the few that I did recognize and really love seeing include the Black Suit Superman from The Death of Superman, All-Star Superman, and definitely Kingdom Come. All of the Superman coming together in the end to defeat Vandal Savage was another really great touch. The story has such an interesting premise, I would definitely love to see it being fleshed out and become a full issue rather than just a short story. Getting to see all of Superman's trouble through time, the struggle to go home, and the drive to go home would be really amazing to see fleshed out. One thing I absolutely love that this story touched upon was the fact that it referenced how different Superman was starting off. When Superman was in the 1930s, he's missing a lot of his powers, and he doesn't have the same level of control. He also mentions things are a lot simpler in this time. I think it's a great nod to how Superman started off, and also a wonderful way to show just how far he's come as a character. The ending to this was great, with Superman being able to celebrate his birthday with his family after everything he'd been through. It also ends with the perfect caption that holds the heart of the story and the heart of the issue. Happy birthday, Superman. Here's to another 1,000 issues, and another 80 years. The pleasure was all ours. Story 3 is The Enemy Within. It starts with Superman narrating about how he can't be everywhere, even though he's very often needed in more places than just one at a time. Whenever he's needed somewhere, and he can't be there, he simply turns to the good people of the earth to step in his place. He can't be everywhere, but there will always be a good person willing to do the right thing and help out. Currently in Metropolis, a school principal has his students at gunpoint. Maggie Sawyer is overseeing the situation. Maggie tries to talk him down, but he seems troubled and unable to think. They call in his wife to try to talk to him, yet that doesn't seem to work either. The principal says he can't stop, even though he wants to, and he's going to be forced to kill everyone soon. Superman's narration realizes he's being controlled, and he picks up the same frequency that he picks up from Brainiac's drones. The principal fights back against the control of Brainiac, and struggles to put the gun down when the police shoot him. His wife and his students start to mourn him, but they are soon informed he isn't dead. The police had used rubber bullets. Superman says he should have expected this from Maggie Sawyer, because she's always compassionate, even when she's in danger. Superman manages to save Tokyo from Brainiac, but Tokyo was never the target. Brainiac was targeting Metropolis with brand new mind control tech. Unfortunately for Brainiac, the mind control tech wasn't perfect, and the people of Metropolis are strong enough to fight back. Maggie Sawyer, the police force, and even the average citizen of Metropolis are all strong enough to keep fighting. Brainiac never stood a chance to begin with. The story ends with Superman giving a final narration about the nature of mankind. Humans might be weaker than several other species of aliens in the universe, but what they do have is passion, willpower, and determination. This story is different from the rest of it, as it is the only story where Superman does not play a part. Though he does stop Brainiac's drones in Tokyo, we don't see that. Instead, the entire focus is on Principal Davis and the people of Metropolis. What Superman mentions in the beginning is a common criticism people have about his character. Even though Superman is so powerful, he just cannot be everywhere at once. So what happens to the people that need Superman when Superman isn't there? The story clearly demonstrates, even when Superman isn't around physically, Superman is always there in spirit. Inside of every good person, inside of everyone who takes act, inside of everyone who helps those in need. This continues the idea Superman is more than a person, and more than a superhero. He's an idea, a symbol, an inspiration. Superman didn't need to do anything in the story because the people of Metropolis acted instead. They acted in his place. They were Superman. Maggie Sawyer could have killed Principal Davis killed. However, not only did she see that he was struggling with what he was doing, but his death would have hurt so many people. His wife was there, and even if his students were in danger, they were still shown saddened and in shock when it appeared he had been killed. Superman's comments about Maggie's compassion are important, because it showcases the power of humanity, and that is the theme of this story, humanity and the strength humanity holds. Brainiac was defeated in the story not through brute strength or a fight, but through the compassion humanity holds, as well as humanity's willpower to survive. Superman's end speech nails the message perfectly. Humans are frail, they are weak, but they are the real heroes of this story. Our compassion, willpower strengthens us beyond anything that could be expected of a physically weak species. Humanity is powerful, and together it can overcome any obstacle. The fourth story, The Car, opens with a very familiar looking car being taken into a repair shop. The mechanic asks how the car could be so messed up, and even jokes if the driver had hit an elephant. The driver flashes back to having hit Superman. The mechanic, of course, doesn't believe the story, because there's just no way a person can do this much damage to a car. But the driver insists it was a man he hit. The mechanic tells him to leave the car overnight, until he can get sober, assuming that he's drunk. He also suggests junking the car rather than fixing it, as that would be easier. The driver wanders out to where he sees Superman. Superman talks to the driver, saying he was looking for him. He starts to talk to him about how he knows people like him. People who do whatever they want, and feel like they can get away with everything. He also mentioned, though, he looked into the driver's background, and he knows the trouble he's had in life. Superman offers him some advice about reevaluating his life. He leaves him with a final, simple suggestion. He can fix his life, or he can junk it. As Superman flies off, the driver is left thinking about what Superman said. The final panel shows him with a fixed car, playing with children by a fire hydrant. The story was short, but very sweet, and it takes us back to the first issue, the iconic cover of Action Comics #1, with Superman lifting up the damaged car. The story is a resolution of sorts to that cover. Seeing as how this is the beginning of Superman's career, it makes perfect sense the mechanic doesn't believe the story he's told about hitting a person. It's also a beautiful touch to have Superman in his original outfit, since that was when this story takes place. What really makes the story enjoyable is seeing how Superman interacts with the driver. While at first it seems Superman is berating him, he quickly shows compassion, which is what Superman is known for. He went through the trouble of finding who this person was, what he went through in life, where he would be, just to try and help him out. Even at the start of his career, Superman was more focused on helping criminals become good people, rather than just arresting them and getting rid of them. The final panel is a beautiful image, as it shows he did take Superman's words to heart. Superman said he could fix his life, or he could junk it, just like what the mechanic told him about his car. The mechanic suggested junking it would be easier, but he decided to fix it. This is a beautiful metaphor for life. His life was already damaged. It was messed up. It would have required a lot of time and hard work to fix his life. The easy way out? Just junk it. Stay on the criminal path. Abandon hope of fixing what was broken. But instead of taking the easy option, he fixed his life, and he's shown happily playing with children. He has a fixed car, he has a fixed life, all thanks to Superman. Superman does far more than just take down criminals. He reminds criminals they were once good people. they can become good people once more. Even with the worst of damage, a car can always be fixed. You just need a good mechanic guiding you along the way. The 5th season is, coincidentally enough, the 5th story. It starts with Superman going to confront Lex Luthor. Superman says he knows Lex Luthor has the Eye of Zotar and the Chronos Time Scissors. Using both, he could cut someone's entire genealogical line from history. Luthor, though, says this isn't what he was using them for. He merely wanted to look into space at the Smallville Planetarium. Luthor talks about how when he was younger, he would often go to the Smallville Planetarium to see the story of the universe. He also talks about how Smallville has a 5th season, a few weeks between winter and spring, where the weather became unreliable, erratic. Luthor tells of how when he was younger, he once sent a message into space from the Smallville Planetarium, hoping to get a response. Even though he never received a response, the signal is still out there, still traveling, being sent for anyone to find. Superman says he knows how Luthor feels. He's tried getting a signal from Krypton, a sign that anything is out there. The presentation about the story of the universe starts to end, with Superman and Luthor watching it. Luthor admits to Superman he did take the eye and the scissor to kill him. Superman says he knows, and the two watch the simulation of the Earth being eaten into the sun. The story ends very abruptly with a caption, "The end of time," indicating the end of the universe. This story is a lot more somber compared to the other ones. It ends abruptly with the end of the universe in simulation. This is a reminder, everything dies eventually. There is an end to everything, even the universe. What makes this story great is the dynamic that Luthor and Superman have. They both connect over the feeling of wanting more, and they both have fond memories from the Smallville Planetarium and the 5th season in Smallville. One of the reasons Lex Luthor is such a great Superman villain is because of the fact that he and Superman aren't so different if you think about it. They both want humanity to grow. They both want it to develop to the fullest potential. But what's different is their method. Superman believes in the positive nature of humanity. He believes everyone is a good person at their core, and humanity will grow through understanding, compassion, everyone coming together. Luthor, on the other hand, believes humanity can only prosper and grow through strength. One of the reasons Luthor hates Superman so much is because he feels beings like Superman hold humanity back from evolution. If humans continue to rely on Superman to solve their problems, rather than taking care of it themselves, they will never reach the potential he believes they have. Another interesting contrast between Superman and Luthor is how they perceive themselves in relation to humans. As shown in the first story, Superman is very humble. He believes people are more important than he is. Luthor, on the other hand, believes only he can save humanity, only he can lead it. The story looks at everything Superman and Luthor have in common, as well as everything that separates them. The end is so important because it shows everything comes to an end. If Superman and Luthor want to change humanity, want to make it stronger before the end, they have to compromise, they have to work together, they have to create a better world together. Story 6 is Of Tomorrow. It opens with Superman gathering dirt and finding a crystal. He says that he comes here every time he can, but unfortunately, this would be his last visit. They've reached the end. The Earth is about to be swallowed by the sun. Though Superman could use his strength to push the sun back and save it, there would not be a point to this. The Earth had been abandoned for billions of years now, and everything needs to end eventually. It is time for him to let go, time for him to say goodbye. Before the Earth goes away, he decides to give an update on everything that has been going on. Lois has been doing well, though she's tired of the Eternity formula since it ruined the taste of grapes for her. John has also been doing well. He's grown to be an amazing person. Superman starts to tear up, saying the final farewell to his parents, but it's far too painful. Superman reminds Pa Kent of a story when he was younger. He didn't want to go to church, and he asks Pa Kent, "How can you believe in God when you use science as a farmer?" Pa Kent replied it was all the same. Science, religion, myth, they were all the same. They were just stories people chose to believe. In the end, everything is stardust, waiting to be reclaimed. Superman says his final goodbyes, as the Earth gets swallowed and disappears forever. This story flows so perfectly with the last one. It continues the theme of how everything has an ending, and it focuses on the pain of saying goodbye. I find it so interesting that this story flows perfectly with the last one, because this story was written by Tom King, the current Batman writer, and the previous one was written by Scott Snyder, the previous Batman writer. Snyder passed the Batman torch on to King, and similarly, Snyder's story flows into King's here. A nice little parallel. This story focuses especially on Superman's relationship with his adopted parents, Ma and Pa Kent. Despite having all of the power that he has, one of the most humanizing things about Superman is the relationship he has with his parents. The story shows the pain of Superman having to say goodbye to his parents for the last time, because the Earth has finally reached its end. Just like Krypton was destroyed and he lost everything there, Now the Earth is being destroyed, and he's losing everything here. It isn't as painful since the Earth has been abandoned for billions of years, and the Eternity Formula is keeping those he cares for alive. But he is still losing something dear to him with the Earth's passing. He's losing his parents. Superman's connection to the Earth started with his adoptive parents, and here his relationship with the Earth ends with them. They were the first thing he experienced, and now they're the last thing he's experiencing. It's such a humanizing moment for someone so powerful. The most difficult thing anybody ever has to face in life is the death of their parents. Though Ma and Pa Kent had been dead for long, this would really be the last time Superman ever gets to speak with them. It's the Man of Steel at his weakest moment. It shows despite everything he can do, he's just as human as any of us. At his core, he's human as well. The 7th story, 5 Minutes, brings things back to a much more cheerful mood, starting with Clark at the Daily Planet. He's working on a project, and Perry White tells him he only has 5 minutes left to finish up. Clark, however, needs to run off, since Superman is needed to stop a speeding train. Superman manages to save the train, and the passengers go to get help for the conductor, who had a heart attack. As he's flying off, he sees Bebo getting attacked by thieves. Superman and Bebo manage to take care of them together, and Superman flies off, leaving him to call the cops. Superman leaves to finish his assignment when he notices something's about to enter the atmosphere. There's only 2 minutes left until his deadline, but he has to stop this object. He takes care of it with 90 seconds left, and he rushes back to finish his work quickly. While he does manage to finish just in time, Perry tells him that's old news, and there's a new Superman story to work on. The story ends with Clark Kent saying, reporting and superheroing aren't that different. They're both fast-paced, and he loves both of his jobs. This was a short but very sweet story. There were a few nice touches, such as the inclusion of an iconic yet underutilized Superman character. For this story, there's very much a theme about identity, and what identity means to not only Superman, but Clark Kent. It demonstrates how being Clark Kent is just as important as being Superman. Though he has a lot of responsibilities as Superman, he also has his own responsibilities and his own duties as Clark Kent. His job as a reporter is fast-paced, and it suits someone like him perfectly because he loves a fast-paced life. Something unique about Superman as a hero is that his secret identity and his job are all personal choices, not necessities. He doesn't have to be Clark Kent. He could be Superman all the time if he chose to, but he chooses to be Clark Kent because he loves being human. He loves living with humans, and he loves having a human life. The story shows, even though it can be difficult to manage being both Superman and being Clark Kent, it's not something Superman would ever give up. He loves his life just the way it is, and it's something that isn't going to change. Our 8th story, Actionland, starts off with a guide to the most colossal experience in the galaxy. The tour begins with a replica of Kal-El's rocket. From the rocket, we are then taken to Smallville, Kansas, and a replica of where Clark would soon call home. From Smallville to Metropolis, the trip begins to tell the story of Superman's first adventures. There's recreations of Superman's allies and Superman's villains, so guests can experience how fights with Superman would actually be like. There's also a Fortress of Solitude attraction, to show what Superman did in his free time. The attraction comes to an end as Superman begins to face off against his most dangerous foe, Mr. Mxyzptlk. The fight was said to be so grand the multiverse itself was in danger. The tour guide becomes confused though, and doesn't know what to do next, causing the entire attraction to fall apart. It turns out the attraction was an illusion created by Mr. Mxyzptlk, and the tour guide was his wife Gypsy. Mr. Mxyzptlk is angry that no matter how much he tries, he just can't perfect his story. Gypsy, however, reassures him. If he really wanted to, he could erase Superman. But erasing Superman would erase a part of him. The story ends with the two of them embracing, knowing as long as there's a Superman, there's a part of them that's unique and different. There's not really much to say about this story, as it's a much more comedic story compared to the other stories in this issue. Something that makes it stand out compared to the other ones is the fact that it's the only one to not include Superman at all, and instead focuses entirely on one of his villains, in this case Mxyzptlk. The decision is interesting, as it showcases Superman's relationship with his enemies isn't that too different of that with his allies. Superman gives Mr. Mxyzptlk an added purpose, and without Superman, he would not be the same being. I think it really continues the ongoing theme present in all of the stories, how Superman influences and affects people. The art style for the story is very nice, being very reminiscent of Superman the Animated Series, with a few other art styles thrown in occasionally. The art style works so perfectly because Paul Dini, one of the head writers for the DC Animated Universe, wrote this story. A lighthearted and comedic story that shows Superman affects and changes everyone he comes into contact with, including his villains. The penultimate story, number 9, is faster than a speeding bullet. It opens with Superman trying to fly towards an active crime scene. A man has a woman at gunpoint and is ready to shoot her. Superman doesn't think he'll make it in time, and he's about to shoot. With his super sight, Superman can see the gunpowder go off, and even at his fastest, he knows he will not make it in time. He looks over to the woman and realizes he hasn't been paying attention to her at all. She fought against him, buying Superman an attosecond. Though that wouldn't stop the bullet, he now has enough time to stop it himself. After saving her and letting the police take care of the criminal, Superman talks to the woman, named Lila, and tells her what she did was incredibly brave. The two have a touching moment together, and then Superman has to fly off. The end narration has Clark talking with Lois, and Lois tells him that while people always say they're inspired by Superman, the truth is, Superman is the one inspired by them. Another very short story, but a powerful one to reach near the end of the issue. A common misconception about Superman is that he has limitless power, but even Superman has his limits. As shown here, he had a limit as to how fast he could get there in time to stop the bullet. Superman knew there was no way he would be able to get there in time and save Lila, but what he didn't expect was Lila stepping in to save herself. It was thanks to a small, but brave act that Superman was able to save her life. The ending, where Lois says Superman is inspired by people, rather than people being inspired by Superman, is such a heartwarming message. There wasn't much that Lila could do, but the little act of bravery that she did was enough for Superman. This shows how even though there are often times where we cannot help out as much as we would like to, every little bit is important, and that is more than enough. Every act of bravery, every act of kindness, no matter how small, is important to someone. It helps someone, it makes a difference. Superman is inspired by people because of their willingness to help, no matter how small the act may be, no matter how insignificant it may sound. Everything a person does has an impact. As long as we keep helping, no matter how small the help, things will only continue to get better. The last part of the story, and something that I absolutely love, is that this was dedicated to Christopher Reeves. The Christopher Reeves version of Superman is perhaps the ultimate embodiment of this message. Do good, and inspire others to do good as well. That is how you become Superman. The last story is The Truth, and it opens immediately in the middle of a fight scene. Superman crashes into a restaurant where two women find him. The women take him to safety, and quickly notice he is wearing his old red trunks again. Outside, a savage-looking alien is trying to find Superman, but Supergirl starts to fight him instead. He quickly takes care of Supergirl, while the women continue to talk about his red trunks. Maggie Sawyer arrives with her team, but they are unable to do anything either. Finally, Superman gains conscious, while the women are still talking about his red trunks. Superman goes to fight him, but it's clear he's far too outmatched. The story, and the issue as a whole, ends with the alien saying his name is Rogol-Zar, and he's here to cleanse the world of Kryptonians, just as he promised Jor-El he would when he destroyed Krypton. This story is definitely the weakest out of all of them, and it's so sad that this is how they chose to end the issue as a whole. It makes sense though, because this was just meant as a way to introduce readers to where Brian Michael Bendis will take Superman once he starts writing in May. While it did work as a good teaser, it felt really out of place when compared to the rest of the stories featured in this issue. The joke about the red trunks coming back was funny at first, but it seemed to have run a little too long, and it didn't really give an explanation for why the red trunks are back. I'm sure Bendis will have an explanation for us when the story starts in May, and I'm sure he has a great story to tell, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens. The issue as a whole was definitely enjoyable. It served its purpose for being an anniversary for Action Comics and Superman amazingly. Each story focuses on a different aspect of what makes the character unique and special. They each work well together in order to paint a picture of just who the Man of Steel is. This issue might be more expensive than a standard issue, but keep in mind it's 80 pages of content without ads, and it has 10 different stories, so it is definitely more than worth the price. There are also so many different variant covers, each in a different art style, representing a different decade of Superman's history. Usually I'm against having so many different variant covers, but for this comic it just feels natural. Each cover has so much love put into them. It reflects a different aspect of Superman, just as these stories each reflect a different aspect of him. The wide variety of writers and artists working together helped to make this so multi-layered in terms of analyzing Superman, who he is, and what he means. Each writer has a different perspective when looking at Superman, yet they all manage to reach his core character, and all manage to touch upon core themes. The stories each writer has reflects their own personal writing style as well, and suits them amazingly. For example, Jeff Johns wrote The Car. That story is very much a legacy story for Superman. It takes us back to his first appearance of Action Comics #1, and enhances it. Jeff Johns is great at writing legacy stories, so that story fit perfectly for his writing style. Another example is The Fifth Season, written by Scott Snyder. Snyder's work on the New 52 Batman, as well as Dark Knight Metal, was very dark. His writing style in general is a darker writing style, and The Fifth Season is the darkest story of this issue, dealing with the inevitability of the end, and the futility of everything. Reaching out and wanting more, never attaining what you seek, all things that are touched upon in the 5th season, and things that work amazing with Snyder's tone. Tom King's story of Tomorrow takes a look at the humanity of Superman, as he has to say goodbye to the Earth, and say goodbye to his parents for the last time. Tom King is well known for writing deep and humanistic characters, just as he did in The Vision, in Batman Rebirth, and in Mr. Miracle. This story takes a look at who Superman is not as a hero, but as a person, and what makes him just as human as we are. Paul Dini's story was very comedic, and it was drawn reminiscent of the work in the DCAU. Having so many different writers helps to amplify the story in ways that a single writer just cannot. Even if the ending was weak, Bendis working on Superman soon is something I cannot wait for. I am so looking forward to it. There are so many different themes present throughout the story, but the majority of them focus not only on who Superman is as a character, but what humanity means to Superman, how humanity grows, develops, how people change Superman. The message to take away from all of this is, even if Superman isn't real, we can look up to him, we can learn from him, we can inspire to be like him. Each person can make a difference. Each person can do the right thing. Each person can create change. People are naturally good. They want to do the right thing. All that is needed is someone like Superman. Someone to inspire. Someone to strive for the betterment of mankind. One person to do one good act will create a ripple effect, and that is how things will get better. This issue is the ultimate tribute to Superman, to Action Comics, to DC, and it couldn't have been a better 1000th issue. Overall, I have to say this issue is perfection. It is so great that I want everyone to be able to experience it. Thus, I will be giving away a copy of it. To enter the giveaway, simply leave a comment on the video saying which of these stories was your favorite, and what do you love the most about Superman. The winner will be contacted on May 30th, the day Brian Michael Bendis starts writing Superman for DC Comics. The winner will also be able to pick which variant cover they want, if they don't want the original cover. Let me know what you thought of the issue. Did you love it as much as I did, or do you think Superman deserves more for his 80th anniversary and his 100th issue? I will admit, as much as I love this, I feel just slightly sad that other Superman-based characters didn't get as much love, such as Krypto, Supergirl, Superboy, etc. It focused very much on Superman, and not his extended universe. But then again, this was a Superman anniversary, so it makes sense. Either way, I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time.